Today we have with us Robin Sharma, a Canadian writer who is considered one of the top leadership and personal mastery experts and speakers in the world. His international bestsellers, such as The 5 a.m. Club and The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, who hasn't heard about that one, have sold millions of copies in over 92 languages, making him one of the most widely read authors in the world. Mentor to some of the world's most successful people, Robin has advised rock stars, billionaires, royalty, and celebrity CEOs. Welcome to this program with E-Times, Robin. Very happy.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be with you, Vinita. Thank you.
I believe at the age of 25, Robin, you just quit your career as a lawyer and just to pursue stress management and spirituality. How did you have the guts to do that at such a young age?
Well, I would actually, first of all, say that my focus is more on helping people be more productive, perform better, turn trials into triumphs in this volatile world, and live not only more productive, but more meaningful lives. So yes, I used to be a litigation lawyer and I was very unfulfilled. So I went on a search of sorts and I started experimenting with different modalities and different tools and different techniques, because in so many ways I'd done what the world suggests you should do in order to be successful, but I felt very empty. And I think success without soulfulness is a very empty victory. So through my experiments and through my trials and through trying all these different methods, I made a very profound transformation in my life. I wrote about it in a self-published book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I was a completely unknown author, but people resonated with the information in that book, and the book just became a word of mouth phenomenon, and it led me into a new life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing. What really amazes me that at the age of 25, when most of us are still trying to just figure out our futures, our career, and would be very happy to have a steady job and be earning the way that you were and a steady lifestyle. That is the age at which you started asking yourself the questions that people would ask themselves in their late 50s or 60s or something. Do you think this is something that you were born with, or was it circumstances that led you to be what you were?
I think it's an excellent question. The most honest answer I could give you, Vinita, is I don't know the answer. And you're absolutely right. A lot of us, we reach the halftime point of our life, and we try our best to stop listening to the noise, and we try to find the signal. And maybe it's because we connect with our mortality a little bit more in 50s and 60s and as we age. For whatever reason, and I'm certainly not saying I'm anyone special, but for some reason, I was asking myself a lot of questions in my 20s, and I was rethinking a lot of ideas. And if there was one thing I did, I was curious and open to explore how I could find more happiness and more true productivity and creativity. I think instinct is more powerful than our intellect. And all of us have great gifts. I mean, the new book is the Everyday Hero Manifesto, which is really about how we can reconnect with our most powerful selves in this world where there's so much volatility. And I think one of the things is that we've forgotten who we truly are. And we've become caught up in so much busyness and so much distraction. And there is so much turbulence in the world right now. And we've forgotten to have the bravery, I think, and maybe the wisdom to trust ourselves and to listen to the wisdom that's inside every single one of us. I truly believe there are no extra people on the planet today. Every single one of us has wisdom and creativity and nobility and strength, but a lot of us are disconnected from that.
Yeah. Your book, The Everyday Hero Manifesto, as you say, you've called it the most valuable book that you have ever written. And you claim that if you read the book, it'll transform your life. And I have been reading it. And I must say that I resonate with a lot of the stuff that's written in the book, a lot of things you've written. And I haven't finished reading it, but I've been, not just reading it chronologically. I've been jumping chapters, going ahead of myself and then coming back and reading it that way. And it does answer a lot of questions that I think most of us have. But why do you call it the most valuable book you have ever written?
I've never worked so hard on a book.
Really?
I've
Okay.
never given so much to a book. I've never shared so much of my hopes as well as my trials in any book I've ever written. I wrote it over 16 months in the pandemic. I rewrote it probably 21 or 22 times. I've shared so much of the methodologies that I've shared with billionaires and sports superstars and movement makers that I've been mentoring for over a quarter of a century. I distilled so much of the methodology, the models, the philosophy, the daily routines. I've shared so much of that in the Everyday Hero Manifesto. So for someone who's open, someone who's ready to change, someone who wants to be so much more creative and productive in this world of so much distraction, it's a book that I believe will be truly transformational. Now, of course, no idea works unless we're willing to do the work. And I believe ideation without execution is delusion. So the information is in the Everyday Hero Manifesto, but it falls on every reader to apply it every day and make those small little steps. And if we make those small little optimizations every day over time, they lead to a tsunami of results, personally, professionally, physically, spiritually.
Are there new things that you've said in this book which you haven't said earlier in the earlier books?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll just, one example is just, there's a chapter which shares this model, the peak productivities pyramid. I've never shared that in any of my books. There's another chapter, the 13 hidden traits of the billionaires I've mentored. Never shared that. There's a whole chapter in this world of, trolls, right? And haters and critics. There's one chapter called the troll deconstruction, where I shared the model on how do we deal with critics? How do we deal with people who want to bring us down versus lift us up? So there's a lot of new information, philosophies, tools, models in the Everyday Hero Manifesto.
And that's wonderful. I never wanted to rush through the book because I know that each chapter requires you to read it and internalize it and think about it. And that is what is most important with this book. That's what I felt. So I will continue reading it and complete it. And I'm sure I will be a transformed person after that. I hope to be. So what about your process of writing, Robin? When you write, I know you lay a lot of stress on journaling, and you keep putting down your thoughts and your experiences and the things that you have changed in yourself and the ones that you want to change. So is that an intrinsic part of your writing process?
It is. It is. I think a lot of artists carry notebooks. Let's call it the artist notebook. And I was in Barcelona 2 weeks ago, and I went to the Picasso Museum in the Born district. And one of the things I noticed when I first walked in, there were a lot of his notepads, and he just was making so many notations and drawings and etchings. And I think the very process of writing ideas down, or in Picasso's case, doing those little drawings, it is part of the iteration. And even if in my journals, if I never go back, because often I don't go back to look at what I wrote, the process of every morning writing new ideas, playing with new models, exposing my creativity to the written page, that is definitely part of the process. I'm always writing down things, always capture the ideas in these kinds of notebooks that I always have around me. And when I wrote the Everyday Hero Manifesto, it was a 16-month process, as I mentioned, in the pandemic. So I wasn't traveling as I usually do. I was home most of the time. But that forced isolation and that solitude allowed me to go very, very deep and really live an artist's life. It was a very minimalist life, Vinita. It was very simple. And I have an idea. One of the ideas I talk about in the book is the 5 great hours rule. So I would have my coffee in the morning, and I would do some exercise, and then I would sit down for 5 hours, and I would write without distraction, just in fasted state, drinking my coffee, listening to country music. After those 5, if I got those 5 hours, that was a good day. And I'd be with my family the rest of the day. And every evening, I learned this from James Patterson, the famous author, but I'd watch movies most evenings just to rest my brain and rest my spirit.
Is that the usual process you follow for every book? Like writing for hours in the morning? You do.
I would say mostly, but not perfectly. When I wrote the 5 a.m. Club, the world was more open. So I wrote it in Mauritius. I wrote a lot of it in St. Petersburg. I wrote it in a lot of it in Rome. But yes, generally I'm most creative and productive in the morning. And coffee is a great cognitive enhancer for me. So I love, and it's even very sacred and simple to me. I drink my coffee. I start my writing process. When I was writing 5 a.m. Club, a lot of it was in hotel rooms. So do not disturb on the phone, do not disturb on the door. And I just sit there in isolation in silence unless there's music, and I just write. And then when I'm finished, I put down my work and I go for a walk. And I just sort of, recover and release and then plan for the rest of the day.
Yeah. In your book, The 5 a.m. Club, you've stressed on 5 a.m. as the morning hour at which everybody should wake up. Why 5 a.m.? Why did you hit upon 5 a.m.?
There is a word for this. I believe it's in Sanskrit, and it's essentially the hours around dawn. And what the pundits say is these hours are the time of most quietude. And Vinita, we've spent the night sleeping, so our brain has washed, and neuroscientists will tell you there's a mechanism while we sleep that actually washes the brain, so to speak. But also, while we sleep, we're letting go of the residue of the day before. And so what the pundits and sages and seers tell us is that when you wake up between 4 and 6 o'clock, and some of them even say 3 a.m., there's an energy in the air. And they will say to you that we are most available as human beings for prayer, meditation, reading the books of wisdom. And so at that time of the day, we can have that kind of exposure to that kind of wisdom can have the greatest impact on our human growth. And so I'm a big fan of the 5 a.m. Club, especially in this world of distraction and digital diversion. It's the quietest time of the day. It's a great time to run the protocols I talk about in that book. And I believe that the way you begin your day dramatically sets up the way your day unfolds. If you start your day with some reading and some music and some exercise and some prayer or some meditation, that will color and set the tone for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Do you write by hand? Because I've seen some pictures of your desk, which you've shared, and I can only see notebooks and pens, and I've never seen a laptop there.
That's a great observation. I'm not a laptop person. I wrote a lot of the first draft of the Every Manifesto on my iPhone, and then another part of the way I write is I rush to beta and then optimize to my best. And what I mean by that is psychologically, the quicker I can get out a rough draft, the more I feel, oh, the book is done now, I just have to refine it. Even though the real work is in the refining. I mean, John Irving, the writer, said, I'm not a great writer, I'm a great editor. Yeah. And I think the best writers, really, they're great editors. So the Everyday Hero Manifesto, I wrote it. I wrote a lot of the chapters on my iPhone. I was in Tribeca, New York, in February of 2020, just before the pandemic started. Once I get the chapters, then I print them out. So, I mean, I can just show you if you want to see, but these are stacks of a new book right here. So once I do the initial chapters on my phone, then I print it out. And once I print it out, I take my pen and I start making a lot of markings on every page. I give it to my amazing executive assistant, Angela. 4 days later, she shows up at my house with the next version, and we just keep on iterating and changing until eventually I have to say goodbye to the book. There's but it's really a lot of editing and optimizing.
Absolutely, and that's what brings out the finesse, the final product after you've really polished it up. So that's very interesting to get an idea of the process, your process of writing. Each writer has such a different process, really. So it's interesting to know yours. So do you really consider technology more a disruptor than an enabler?
Well, I think technology is a phenomenal servant, but it's a tyrannical master.
Well said.
So I'm on Instagram and YouTube, and it allows me to be an instrument of service and have an impact and to distribute value to millions of people. Technology allows me to catch up on the news on the days that I watch the news. It allows me to do so many things. I mean, yesterday I had a wonderful conversation with my parents who are in a different city, and to state the obvious, we did a video call. I mean, how incredible is that? We have the technology that allows us in many ways to live like royalty lived a few hundred years ago. But I think it's an addiction to distraction is the death of our creative production. And I think too many good souls, and I'm not judging, just reporting, I think too many good souls are addicted to social media, and they're addicted to likes, and they're addicted to the feed, and they're addicted to picking up their phone. And they're losing the best hours of their day. I think a lot of them are missing out on an opportunity to produce masterwork, to be present with their friends and their family, to see the joys of life, and just to enjoy the journey of their days. So I think technology is absolutely obvious. It's incredibly valuable, used with wisdom, discernment, and self-discipline.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about discovering the purpose of your life, and how you need to write that purpose, because unless you write it, it's not the purpose of it. You can't achieve it. How would you say can one discover the purpose of one's life?
It's a great question.
Lucky enough to suddenly realize it at the age of 25.
Well, I mean, I'm no guru. I'm still discovering things every day. And that's the thing about a life purpose. One might think they found it, but it's always changing. It's in a constant state of flux. And I think the more we grow, the more we rethink things and travel new routes.
I mean, you might think this is the purpose of my life and set off, and then realize, no, it wasn't. And you've been wasting your time. It was something completely different.
And maybe it wasn't even a waste of time. Maybe we had to walk down that road. And I think you'd agree with it. Maybe we had to walk down that road as part of our process to find the right road. I don't really, a lot of the Everyday Hero Manifesto talks about how you can turn trials into triumphs and adversity into opportunity. And I really don't believe in this idea called failure. I think, life has this invisible set of hands. There's this idea, a bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. And so even if the ego tells us that we failed, it was the wrong relationship, it was the wrong job, it was the wrong year, it was the wrong move, I believe it's all grist for the mill. I believe it's all fodder for our growth. And I don't think we should judge the so-called failures as bad when they are really, they are growth in wolf's clothing. But to answer your question, how do we find life's purpose? Because I want to make sure I answer it. So many people ask me that question. I think you just live. We stop playing small, have the bravery to follow your instinct. If you fail, don't see it as failure, see it as a lesson and an opportunity, and part of a soaring life colorfully lived. I mean, I've made so many mistakes. I've failed, I've had tragedies, and I've had triumphs. And that's just a human being. In terms of some specific tactics, journaling really is powerful. Journaling is thinking on paper. So writing, what makes me happiest? Where does my joy live? What are the things I would do if I wasn't really paid? If I had 30 days left to live, where would I go? Who would I be with? Journaling is powerful. Prayer is powerful. Prayer is very, very powerful. Meditation, going to a quiet place, getting rid of the noise and starting to hear the signal of your higher power, your wisdom. I mean, that's why I call the book The Everyday Hero Manifesto. That's why I shared this methodology. It's all of us have heroism within us. Unfortunately, a lot of us have forgotten who we truly are. We've forgotten our gifts. We've forgotten our courage. We've forgotten our creativity. And we put people like the great Nelson Mandela, the great Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., Albert Einstein. We put these people on pedestals while we forget that we too can live heroism in our own way.
Yeah. So would you say that the purpose of your life, as you see it, is to help others live their best selves, live their best lives, and achieve their best potential?
Yes, I would. I would say the purpose of my life, it's what I feel, is to be an instrument of service, to provide people with hope, to provide people with philosophies and methodologies which allow them to get out of the busyness of life and the stuckedness of life, and allow them to break free of their past and their limiting stories, so they can do amazing work, create great results, be a light to others, and live happy lives.
After you've accomplished so much, how do you define success? I mean, you achieved a lot in the field of litigation. You gave it all up, and you never knew whether you will achieve the whatever is success in what you call the seduction of society, the seductions of society, what you call it. Actually, so materialistic success, power, being known. You didn't know you would get all that in this field, and yet you achieved it all here as well. So, what is success?
Well, I don't know if I've achieved it all. I have a long way to go in my spiritual development and in my craft, and I'm always trying to get better as a father and as a partner and as hopefully a servant leader. There's a chapter, Vinita, in the Everyday Hero Manifesto called The 8 Forms of Wealth. And that's how that chapter defines how I would determine success. Success without soulfulness is an empty victory. I don't define success like the world does. The world often says if you have status, position, wealth, you're a success. To me, success starts with self-love and self-respect. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have those two elements, I don't think you're successful. I think success involves great health. Health is wealth. Someone once gave me a piece of paper at an event in Qatar, and it said, health is the crown on the well person's head that only the ill person can see. So having great health and vitality and longevity and energy is part of how I define success. Family is incredibly important. You know, I've mentored a lot of billionaires, and money is all they have. Family, you know, if you have your parents, if you have, let's say, children and a significant other and great friends who love you and you love them, that is like an incredible form of success. Your work, I say a job is only a job if you see it as a job. Our work there's great dignity in all labor, no matter what it is. And so seeing your work as a craft and an opportunity to serve and a skill that you can optimize and something you can find meaning from every day is a form of success. Impact, knowing that whatever you do, you're making a difference in other people's lives and you're somehow making the world a better place, I think is also a form of success.
So nothing you do is too small, so long as it is giving you self-respect and you're able to have a good image of yourself. Do you feel that nothing, no work is too small?
That's absolutely correct. I think it was Mother Teresa who said, we can do small things, I'll paraphrase, we can do small things in great ways, and in that way we can become great. And I think that's really true. I mean, you're kind to a stranger, or you make your work a little bit better, or you make a customer happier, or you take a risk when you're scared, or you read a book versus, play with your phone. All those little choices, when done consistently over time, can lead to a tsunami of results. You think about, let's say, someone who works in a coffee shop. Let's say Or you know what? I'll give you an example from a trip to India. I was in Mumbai, and I was in a taxi, and I was having a conversation with the driver, and he said something to me. He said, "You know, in our culture, we believe guests are God." And he then proceeded to just share this philosophy with me, how his work is important, keeping his taxi clean is important, treating people well is important. Well, imagine he does this every day for many different people, and he's probably done it for 20 or 30 years. What's the impact he's had on people's lives?
You talk a lot about heart set and soul set apart from mindset. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, you've probably heard the term mindset so often. And is our mindset important? Absolutely. Our mindset is our attitude. Our mindset is our psychology. Any great positive psychologist will tell you your daily behavior reflects your deepest beliefs, and our psychological story determines the actions we take. If we don't think we can be world class, if we don't think we can fall in love, if we don't think we can become healthy, we don't think we can become happier, if that's a psychological story that we're running, then we're not even going to take the actions required to make that real, because what would be the point? So of course, our mindset is very important, but I believe there are three other, what I call interior empires for personal mastery that I talk about in the Everyday Hero Manifesto. Mindset is only one of them. The second one, as you say, is Heartset. We're not only psychological beings, we're emotional beings. So it's not just mindset. We need to work on what I call our Heartset. This is releasing the toxic emotions of shame and guilt and anger and sadness and sorrow that we all pick up as we go through life. Most people, what we do is, our culture says, swallow those things. Don't pay any attention to those things. You know, it's this idea of toxic positivity. Just be positive even if your heart is broken. I think it's important to work on those things through journaling, prayer, maybe even working with a counselor. And also spending time on the higher vibration emotions of gratitude, awe, wonder, joyfulness. But it's not only mindset and heart set, it's health set, which is extending our energy and growing our longevity, taking good care, good sleep, exercise, supplementation, good food. So mindset, heart set, health set. And then the final interior empire that I talk about in my methodology is soul set. Every human being has a spiritual side. And I'm not necessarily talking about religion. I'm talking about our higher power, not our egoic self, but our heroic self. Every single one of us has wisdom. That's our instinct. Every single one of us knows what truth looks like. Every single one of us wants to live our lives for a cause that's larger than ourselves. Studies have been done. There's actually a chapter in the Everyday Hero Manifesto, the top regrets of people on their deathbeds. And one of them is they wish they had lived for a purpose that was bigger than themselves. So when you work on those four interior empires, even for 5 or 10 minutes every day, let's say 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., you start the process of reconnected to your highest and best self. And that affects your income, your impact, the quality of your work, the quality of your life.
Yeah. Interesting. It's like coming together of all your mindset, your heart set, your soul set, and your health set, which actually shows you the way ahead to be a perfect human being. Is there something called a perfect human being?
Well, I think it will help us get closer to our promise and our best selves. And the outer world, I mean, our work reflects what's going on within. If you have someone who has, let's say, a lot of self-loathing, self-hatred, they don't have a lot of confidence, they don't believe in themselves. That's something going on psychologically and emotionally, maybe physically, and maybe even spiritually. That will affect the quality of the work they do. If you look at someone who's having difficult relationships at the office, that's a reflection of what's going on within. You look at someone's morning routine, pre-sleep ritual, daily work routines. If they're mediocre and average, that's a reflection of what's going on within. So as you start to optimize those four interior empires, your work rises, your income rises, your health rises, your relationships improve, the overall quality of your life begins to soar.
Yeah. One of the things that disturbed me a bit in all the things that you say is that minimalism is the master, is the secret to, like, mastery. Um, and you talk about how we should stay focused on the things that matter, and let go of a lot of things. And in a world where you're surrounded by so many distractions, technology, good movies, good conversations, and something is happening all around, to be told to give up all that and just have a tunnel vision, focus on it. It does seem like the life of a monk, really, rather than a happy life where you are partaking in everything that is on offer.
Well, first of all, thank you for being so honest. Secondly, I'd say in my experience, what makes a happy life is focusing on things that are important versus chasing trivial pursuits. I think the people who are really unhappy are the people who aren't living their potential and who are living their lives in a very reactive way. A lot of people who, you talk about films, and I love films too, but a lot of people are spending the best hours of their finest days chasing entertainment. In the moment, it feels happy. But after a quarter, after a year, after a decade, people look back and say, I've spent my life chasing shiny toys that after 10 years have amounted to nothing. I mean, honoring your potential, doing amazing work, living your values, having a great family life, being with nature, traveling, seeing art, those are the things that bring joy. So, and then I'd also say, I'm not proposing that anyone lives the life of a monk unless they want to live the life of a monk. In the Everyday Hero Manifesto, I'm giving tools like the tight bubble of total focus, the 2 massage protocol or the second wind workout, the morning routines and pre-sleep rituals of some of the most successful people. I'm sharing ideas that will allow us to remove complexity that is trivial so that we can live to the point. And I'm not saying let's be monks. I'm saying let's focus on the things that are most important to us. For example, our health, our happiness, great relationships, doing amazing work, making the world a brighter place in this dark time, and enjoying leisure pursuits or recreation that actually recreates us versus spending our leisure time doing things that actually drain us.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I also feel that throwing yourself into just maybe social media or watching movies when you're tired and just going on doing binge watching and all is also not, it is a distraction, definitely, but it's also something sometimes you actively seek as a means of procrastination, because you don't want to, it's difficult to get down to focusing on what matters. So you're allowing yourself to be distracted. And it's very difficult to break that cycle. You have
it is, and often what we do is we chase these diversions because we're scared, and that's okay. I'm scared. I'm scared at times. So the closer you get to your finest life, the nearer you get to your magic, the more your fears begin to scream. So yes, let's say there's a big project at work, or let's say there's we have the opportunity to find great love, or let's say we've made a commitment to be in our best health this year. As we start to pursue that mountaintop, our fears come out to play. And it's much easier to escape and medicate ourselves with digital media, for example, or procrastination, than get in the game and do the difficult things. But what I've learned, and I'm not saying I'm some kind of a guru, and I'm far from a perfect person, but what I've learned is a hard life is actually the easiest road. When you get up early, when you do the difficult, I did a workout today. I didn't feel like doing it. It's the end of the week. I didn't feel like doing it, but I did it and I felt great. When I wrote the Everyday Hero Manifesto, it took so much out of me. Like I said, I rewrote it 21 or 22 times. I could have mailed it in, as they say. The 5th draft I could have submitted to my publisher and it would have been fine. But it's when you do the difficult things that you get to know who you truly are. Growth comes by not through activities of ease, but growth, satisfaction, true happiness, self-honor, personal respect. Those things come by the consistent doing of difficult things. And I think our society says, if you're doing difficult things, there's something wrong. Seek pleasure.
Yeah.
Look for instant gratification. Things should be fun. Things should be easy and maybe even mindless. Well, then we miss out on growing and seeing how far we can get. And it's the difficult things that introduce us to our gifts and our talents.
It's so easy to slip into that. It's not just what society says, it's your instincts also lead you towards that till you had enough of it, I guess. And then you start feeling uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think the real question, because it's a great point that you raised, am I distracting myself because I need to recover and I need to rejuvenate and refuel? And if that's the case, like I watch movies all the time, so that's great. Or are you distracting yourself because you're scared of how far you could go? You're scared of pushing masterwork in the world. You're scared that you might lose your friends because you become super fit. You're scared that you might leave the crowd by starting that business or writing that screenplay and becoming more successful and fulfilled than your friends.
So a great way is your way of putting in those 5 hours in the morning and then doing whatever you want to do rest of the day, if possible.
Well, if it's much easier for entrepreneurs and artists, I'll acknowledge that. Yet the science confirms the most productive people, even in organizations, are people who work in bursts of productivity versus in a linear way. I don't believe in this hustle and grind culture, work day and night. That only erodes your assets of genius. It makes you tired. You don't have your greatest creativity when you're exhausted. So I believe, and I've worked with so many CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and top teams and ultra successful people, this 5 great hour rule and all the other methodologies I talk about in the Everyday Hero Manifesto, they're very contrarian, but they work. I mean, this idea of working longer to get more done comes from an old era. It comes from the factory era, when if we worked harder on the factory line, we would produce more products. We don't live in that age anymore. We live in the cognitive era. So why are we running a system or way of working from many, many years ago when we're in a completely different world? We are paid to think. We are paid to create. We are paid to produce great work. So, I mean, most people, or a lot of people, it takes them 2 weeks to get 5 hours of great work done.
You talk about the 20-20-20 principle, where you do bring up this getting up and no. Could you just explain that to us, please?
Sure. That's really what the 5 a.m. Club is all about. And simply said, you get up at 5 a.m., you practice getting up at 5 a.m. for approximately 66 days. That's the research of University College London that says if you practice any skill for 66 days in a row, you get to a point of automaticity where it becomes easier to do the new skill than not to do the new skill. A lot of us, we want to embrace a new habit. We try it for a week. It's difficult. We give up. Well, all change is hard at first. It's messy in the middle and it's gorgeous at the end. We all can change because, Vinita, we have a human gift called neuroplasticity. Our brains are built to grow, but we just don't stay with the process long enough to install the new habit. So you get up at 5 a.m., you commit to 66 days. What do you do once you're up at 5 a.m.? You run this 20-20-20 formula. 5 to 5:20, you move, you exercise, and you do sweaty exercise, like running on the spot. You skip, you ride your bicycle, you do a spin class, for example. Why? That releases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which optimizes brain function and processing ability. When you exercise first thing in the morning, you release dopamine, the inspirational neurotransmitter. How valuable is that? You wake up cranky and tired, but Through the exercise, you bring your brain, your metabolism, your body, your spirit to life. When you exercise first thing in the morning, you release oxytocin, you release serotonin, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter. You reduce cortisol, the fear hormone. Okay, and you can hydrate. Now it's 5:20. You feel fantastic. You feel completely different because you've exploited the neurobiological power of exercise. 5:20 to 5:40, second 20-minute pocket of the 20-20-20 formula. This is where you reflect. Imagine getting up in this busy world and you spend 20 minutes reading, writing in a journal, praying, asking yourself, how will I live this day? So, being so intentional, thinking about how you want to be remembered, what you want people to say about you at your funeral, praying, meditating, journaling. Now it's 5:40. You're feeling fundamentally different. You're in much more control of your life. You've done some work on yourself. Final 20 minutes of the 20-20-20 formula. This is about growth. The super successful people have one thing in common. They love learning. They're massively curious. And so this gives you 20 minutes to read a biography, to watch a documentary. This morning, I went to YouTube in the morning, and while I was on my elliptical machine, I watched a documentary on Aristotle Onassis, learned some interesting ideas. So you have 20 minutes to read a book, watch a documentary, do an online course, and now it's 6 o'clock, you feel fundamentally different.
Wow. This sounds fantastic. I'm going to try it, definitely. I am. I could ask you so many more questions, Robin. In fact, every chapter of your book, The Everyday Hero Manifesto, is good enough for a 1 hour chat with you. But I do want people to pick up that book and read it. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time and explaining so many interesting things. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are going to pick up tips from here, and you would have helped so many more people than you do every day. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation, Vinita. I appreciate your great questions, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.